fall just short of its massive potential.
Don't judge me.
The Witcher is headlined by a dedicated performance from the perfectly cast Henry Cavill, taking on the role of Geralt of Rivia, a grizzled man mutated to the point of being a Superman. See what I did there? Shunned by society, he makes his way through life by slaughtering monsters for anyone who will pay coin. And you can tell, Cavill loves being Geralt, like, a lot. He's talked about his love for the books, the games, and that all clearly shines through. And while he remains true to the source material, a lack of genuine plot development for Geralt means there's little depth or nuance.
Tell me what I want to know and you'll live.
A couple of episodes challenge his values, but by the end of the finale, it feels as if the White Wolf is no more interesting than he is in the premiere. Geralt is a driving force behind most of the show's action sequences, which feature some of the best sword fight choreography seen on TV. While always entertaining, the quality of each individual fight does vary depending on Geralt's opposition. Choreography is at its very best when he's clashing with humans, but against monsters the results are less explosive. Episode 1 opens on a fight with a Kikimora, and while the CGI budget sadly doesn't allow for a Game of Thrones style delight, the crustacean-like horror of its numerous bony limbs still have a sense of grim fun. But the best creatures are those with enough human properties to allow for a prosthetic covered human to still convey a sense of emotion. Though a goat-headed Sylvan or a knight with a hedgehog-like face are still among the show's best realized beasts.
I am Torque, the Sylvan, a rare and intelligent creature!
You're a dick.
While Cavill provides the best embodiment of the main cast, Anya Chalotra's Yennefer proves to be the show's most compelling character. Acting as an origin story, this season chronicles Yennefer's rise from deformed farmhand to embittered sorceress. It's a dark, harrowing tale dealing with abuse, betrayal, and anger, which deliver consistent growth and enjoyable turns with each successive episode. Unfortunately, that subtlety is lost as Yennefer becomes stronger in the narrative. Chalotra's on-screen confidence doesn't match that of Yennefer's growth, leaving her feeling unconvincing in later episodes.
I thought you'd have fangs or horns or something.
Completing the trio is Geralt and Siri, Princess of Sintra. Her destiny is intertwined with Geralt's, and much of her story follows her journey to meet the Witcher whom she's never met. The first episode emphasizes that Ciri is an important piece of the show's puzzle, and she's of particular interest to the Nilfgaardian Empire, the show's quote-unquote evil stampeding force, and her fate is the subject of the show's overarching narrative. Which is why it's so frustrating that so little time is spent with her, leaving her feeling more like a MacGuffin for Geralt to find rather than her own compelling character. This unevenness in pacing is only made worse by the overall construction of the show. Geralt's Monster of the Week adventures are fun, but the one-and-done nature of his stories leave him feeling like he's always divorced from the larger storyline. Only Yennefer's storyline feels as if it truly works, thanks to it being mostly original material written for the show that neatly weave her into a larger framework. And the multiple timelines only further the disjointed nature of these three arbitrarily interwoven narratives. All these problems prevent The Witcher from achieving its potential, but they don't derail the experience entirely. On an episode-by-episode basis, the stories are often engaging and provide some solid thrills. But viewing the season as a whole reveals an admirably adventurous experiment gone awry, where fundamentals of cinematic storytelling are discarded in a misguided attempt to surprise viewers with multiple time periods, and storytelling is muddled between episodic and serialized plotlines. This 8-part season is effectively a prologue for the show's main story, which has only just begun in the finale's last scene. And while that does mean that these hours do feel somewhat inconsequential and exposition heavy, they do establish a fascinating world worth exploring. For more on The Witcher, check out Henry Cavill breaking down the duel with Renfri, and our video on how Netflix adapted the source material for The Witcher. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you like to watch IGN.
Who is Geralt?
Big ol' loner, 2 very, very scary looking swords.
Geralt's a Witcher. Geralt's a Witcher, and witches are monster hunters. They are, to put it simply, super soldiers with no political affiliation, designed to kill monsters, and they perpetuate the myth that they have no emotions. What's special about Geralt is that he's undergone even further magical and chemical trials, or alchemical trials, than his Witcher brothers, and he's a Witcher 2.0, really. But what's interesting about Geralt is that he's not cold-hearted at all. He's in fact very much a white knight, just in the shell of a Witcher. Geralt will work for anyone, absolutely. As one of the lines in the show goes, sometimes there's monsters, sometimes there's money, rarely both. And that says a lot about the world he's in. A lot of people don't pay him, but sometimes it's about him just trying to help people as well. So he will work for anyone to a point, as long as it fits within his moral code. Geralt's view of the world is that it is a dark, grim place filled with some bad people, but there's a lot of potential for people to be good as well. It's not just bad people. There's a lot of people in there who are just going through life and they deserve to be protected or helped along the way, whatever it may be. And that is Geralt's viewpoint, really. His moral code is unique because it involves murder. It's not don't kill, it's kill in defense of the innocent. Or kill, unfortunately, if you're forced into a scenario where there's a lesser evil. He's definitely a survivalist, but he has his own Witcher code, which no other Witcher has. They have various potions which they use, and in the books it's best described when he takes this potion and then all of a sudden he can hear a cat 3 streets over, and he can hear the way the wind is moving through the streets, he can hear people arguing, and it's basically then enhances his senses enormously, and to the point where he's having a discussion with a character at one stage after he's taken a potion, and he doesn't move because he doesn't want that character to know quite how quickly he can move when he's under the effects of these potions. We have the meteorite sword, which is used for killing both monsters and men, but typically men. Not all monsters require silver. Typically, and we have the silver sword as well, before I jump into that. Monsters that are made by magical means require silver to kill them. And he has various bits of gear which is made from silver to help do that. But there are monsters out there that can be killed by meteorite steel as well. He has a style, absolutely, but it's dance is what it is. And throughout the fantasy genre, whenever you have one of the masters training someone new or someone who's naturally very good, they were often taught dance before they were taught a sword. And I really wanted to get that across with Geralt. I wanted it to seem like he was flowing from movement to movement. And every single move, even if it was a parry, could turn into attack. And you couldn't really tell the difference between the two. I actually held myself back. There was more.
If you're still looking for even more on The Witcher, why not check out these other videos?
Learn something new every day.
Didn't know that.
Brandon Ross. This might be the best thing Netflix has ever produced.
Thanks, Brandon. Navri. Seeing those goals. Let's dance.
Don't know what he's on about.
The goals in the trailer.
I don't know what that is.
Oh. Subliminal Pancakes 78.
Wonder if Geralt will ever have to go find a lost goat in the woods using a bell. I've been wondering the same.
Canary?
Anya Chalotra really delivered in this trailer.
Aww.
She looks like Yennefer and her line delivery was even better. I just know she's going to be great in the show.
Oh, thank you.
She is going to be great in the show. Hope this helps. This show is going to be amazing. Can't wait until my grandmother is asking me tons of questions.
Aww.
I feel like your grandmother.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Sam Butler.
Oh boy, can't wait to see Dandelion and Geralt doing stuff.
Their relationship is brilliant.
It's my
It's
I
my
just
favourite.
love
Yeah.
watching it.
Yeah. Thomas Alexanian. I really hope for Siri to be the next Arya.
She's not going to be the next Arya. She's Siri. She's very different.
There you go. You got told.
Scott Harbin. Man, Legolas got buff.
Constant comparison. JK12324. Roach has been miscast.
You've got Henry to blame because he cast him.
Yeah.
If you like that video, why not check out Troy Baker and Nolan North responding to your IGN comments, and we've also got Arnold Schwarzenegger and Linda Hamilton doing it too.
remember hearing stories about witches. Is it true what they say?
The first season of The Witcher ends with destiny fulfilled. Geralt and Siri are finally united. Meanwhile, Yennefer unleashes her magical power on Sodden Hill to defeat the Nilfgaardian army, but at what cost? This setup is straight out of the short stories in a tale titled Something More. And while the Netflix adaptation of the novels isn't one-to-one, it is pretty similar. So it gives us a pretty good idea of where season 2 is headed. But real quick, what is up with Geralt's vision of his childhood and the mysterious woman named Vicenna?
You know her name.
Straight up, Vicenna is Geralt's mom. She's a sorceress and a gifted healer, but unlike the original short story, she never reveals that she gave Geralt his name. So Geralt believes it was his mentor, Vesemir, who named him. Whether or not that reveal is being saved for a later date, or Netflix's adaptation will alter Geralt's origin has yet to be seen.
Stop it, Geralt. You don't get to use that name. Vesemir gave me that name.
And for those of you who've played the games, I know your ears perked up at the mention of Vesemir. While there's still no casting announcement for his character, you can bet he's on his way. After talking to showrunner Lauren Schmidt-Hissrich, we learned that the next logical step for season 2 is to adapt the 5 Witcher novels, Blood of Elves, Time of Contempt, Baptism of Fire, The Tower of Swallows, and The Lady of the Lake. And unlike the short stories, the novels have a meatier through line to help guide the narrative thread. According to Hissrich, since The Witcher is a tale of the destiny linking Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer together, you can bet season 2 will explore more of that dynamic.
People linked by destiny will always find each other.
Who is Yennefer?
So what did you think of season 1 of The Witcher, and what do you want out of season 2? Let us know in the comments. And while you're there, check out our videos on comparing a scene from the show and the game, and find out how much Henry Cavill actually knows about The Witcher. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you like to watch IGN.
What's your name?
Geralt.
Like Geralt.
The season 1 finale of Netflix's The Witcher saw our guy Geralt of Rivia meeting up with the young Princess Ciri, who, it has been said, is his destiny. What exactly that means is a bit muddled, but that isn't the only big question that last episode posed. With season 2 right around the corner, there's no time like the present to recap Geralt's journey across the Northern Kingdoms.
None of us will have any peace until there are no monsters left in the world.
We meet Geralt of Rivia when he finds himself in a fight with a Kikamora, which is more or less an aquatic spider roughly 1 billion times bigger than your average arachnid. This takes place in 1231, where our guy wanders into the town of Blaviken looking for work but finding a whole lot of nothing. It turns out these town folks do not like Witchers one bit, and the bartender even refuses to serve him. The princess-turned-bandit Renfri is nice enough to buy Geralt a drink, but they soon go their separate ways. Geralt ends up meeting with a sorcerer named Stregobor, who tries to pay him to kill Renfri, insisting it's the lesser of two evils. But guess what? Geralt doesn't go for that.
If I have to choose between one evil and another, then I prefer not to choose at all.
Despite himself, Geralt really likes Renfri, and after she offers to pay him to help her kill Stregobor and he declines, he begs her to leave so that she can have a life for a change. But Renfri still carries emotional scars from the attacks from Stregobor's men that left her a vagabond. And though she agrees to hear Geralt out, and they share a night of passion, she's right back to her revenge quest early the next morning. Geralt goes to town to stop Renfri from making a decision that she'll regret, but sadly that decision has already been made. He ends up in a truly wild fight scene with her men and eventually is forced to fight Renfri. The two are evenly matched, but in the end, she's felled by his blade. She tells him of a girl in the woods who is his destiny as she dies in his arms. The town people are not as grateful for his heroic acts as you might think, and they form a mob to force him out of town. This all earns him the title of the Butcher of Blaviken, which sounds awesome, but actually really bothers him throughout most of the rest of the series. The Witcher's first season kicks off with a bang, and you might find yourself wondering about pesky little details like what happened to all the other Witchers, and why is Geralt such a weird guy? Fortunately for you, Netflix released an animated prequel called The Nightmare of the Wolf between seasons 1 and 2 to flesh out some witchery backstory by focusing on Geralt's trainer, Vesemir. Taking us along for Vesemir's journey from lowly servant boy to rakish, money-obsessed witcher to the stoic white wolf, this film gives us a little bit of world building outside of Geralt's story. Here, we meet Tetra Gilchrist, the mage who very nearly wiped the Witchers out of existence. As she appeals to the king to help her in her war against the Witchers, she is opposed by Lady Zerbst, who calls upon Vesemir to assist Tetra in vanquishing the monster Kitsu. Lady Zerbst knew Vesemir in his childhood, but when he left to become a Witcher, he left her behind. This shows them rekindle their romance, though you can probably guess that it doesn't end great for our girl. Tetra has a lot of great reasons to despise the Witchers, but she's allowed her hatred of them to twist her into a creature bent only on revenge. Vesemir gives her the benefit of the doubt and calls upon his fellow Witchers to lower their swords, only to see them murdered en masse when Tetra refuses mercy. Lady Zerbst facilitates the escapes of the young Witchers because she is a cool lady. After, oh my god, the sickest fight scene I've ever seen in my life between Vesemir and Tetra, a whole lot of people are dead, and the once boisterous Vesemir decides to become a teacher to the few remaining boys. Plus, we get to meet tiny Geralt as he barely avoids certain death, maybe for the first time, but definitely not the last. Guess what? He's cute. Look at that adorable kid. Already well on his way to becoming a strange guy. But wait, let's get back to Season 1 and the year 1206, where a young disabled woman named Yennefer was busy getting treated like absolute garbage by her terrible dad and various townfolk. After she showed a sudden burst of mage-like power, a sorceress named Tissaia bought Yennefer for an insultingly small amount. Tissaia takes Yennefer to train at Aretuza, which is sort of like a fun wizard school if you took the fun part out. Though Tissaia is what could at best be referred to as a frenemy, she recognizes Yennefer's inner magic even when Yennefer doesn't. Besides, it turns out that Yennefer is a very promising student, and she even starts up a romance with Stregabor's pupil, Istrid. These two are very into each other, but Yennefer wants to be free of her visible disability. She gives up her ability to give birth and becomes Hot Yennefer, crashing a party and letting Istrid know that it's over while simultaneously making it very clear to Tissaia that she's going to live life by her own rules. But wait, way after any of this stuff happened, Cintra is getting decimated in a war against the invading Nilfgaard in 1263. The young princess Siri finds herself totally powerless as her kingdom is destroyed. Her grandfather dies on the battlefield and her grandmother returns only to bid her a tearful goodbye as their city falls. Siri is sent away in hopes of saving her life, but when a threatening knight dressed all in black tracks her down, she surprises him by letting out an immensely powerful scream that causes the earth to crumble. By the skin of her teeth, Siri escapes. Siri makes friends with an elf boy named Dara, and the two of them find their way to Brokeelan Forest, where they meet and join a group of dryads. The queen allows Dara and Siri to join their group, and that could have been the end of things if a doppelganger didn't kill her tutor Mousesack and steal his form. Both Siri and Dara follow the Doppelmousesack out of the forest, but she and Dara quickly realize that something is amiss. The doppelganger attacks, and though Dara is able to save Siri, he is angry that she made him leave the forest and leaves her to continue her journey alone. So, what's Geralt been up to? Well, he made a friend. Kind of. In the bard, Jaskier. Despite being a bit on the annoying side, Jaskier writes songs to build the legend of Geralt, and it works. Though anti-Witcher sentiment runs strong, Geralt is sought after for his abilities thanks to his hype man. The two go on a few fun side quests, one of which shows them being attacked and captured by a goat-like Sylvan named Torque. In a dank cave, they are nearly put to death by an elven king, but Geralt implores the elves to move on rather than die for land that the humans will take soon regardless. A few years later, Geralt agrees to take on the job of fighting a Striga, a legendary monster created by a curse. He discovers that the creature was the result of a courtier who learned of the king's affair with his sister and cursed the child. Geralt realizes all of this a bit too late, and because he doesn't wish to kill the unfortunate monster, he fights her until dawn and is able to save her. In 1249, Geralt finds himself in the court of the Queen of Cintra, who you might remember as Ciri's grandmother, Calanthe. She seeks to create a union between kingdoms and has betrothed her daughter Pavetta to a pretty terrible guy. Pavetta's lover, the knight Duny, who was cursed with a hedgehog-like appearance, arrives in the court as a potential suitor. Calanthe orders Geralt to kill Duny, but Geralt refuses. This allows Pavetta and Duny to have a temporarily happy ending as her powers activate. His curse is lifted, and the queen decides to live and let live. As the timelines start catching up with each other, we arrive in 1256, the year where Yennefer and Geralt meet. When Jaskier is made ill by a reckless djinn, Geralt pulls him along to find a mage. Yennefer is busy taking in the scenery at an orgy, but she heals Jaskier, and she and Geralt are immediately very into each other and start an on-again, off-again thing. In 1262, they cross paths again when both are asked by the dragon fighter Bork and his companions Thea and Vea to go on a good old-fashioned dragon hunt. Yennefer has taken up with a knight who is absolutely the worst, but he dies pretty quickly due to being adult. Still, this doesn't resolve the differences between Yennefer and Geralt. Revealing that she joined the hunt in order to regain her fertility, Yennefer is upset when Geralt tells her she's being foolish. Also, it turns out that Bork was actually a dragon the whole time, so there's that. Instead of killing the dragon, the crew decides to fight to protect the dragon's egg, and a big fight breaks out. There's a lot of twists and turns in this story, but the main thing is that Yennefer leaves Geralt, telling him that he has lost her forever. Geralt is hurt, and he breaks up with Jaskier too, traveling solo once more. The series took us on a lot of fun tangents throughout Season 1, but it was all leading up to the Battle of Sodden Hill. Yennefer has another temporary lapse in judgment and reaches out to Istrid, who rejects her. She then returns to Aretuza and teaches, but discovers that a lot has changed over the years. As Nilfgaard conquers city after city, Tissaia implores Yennefer to pledge to fight. The Nilfgaardians attack Sodden Hill as Yennefer and the mages make a last stand. This battle is epic and bloody, and backstabbing abounds, but Tissaia and Yennefer stand strong with the others. Yennefer creates a massive burst of flame, barely avoiding roasting Tissaia, and seems to vanish into thin air. Meanwhile, Geralt again found himself in conflict with the Queen when he came to ask after Ciri. He was briefly imprisoned, though the Queen tried to send Ciri with him to safety, only to find that he had escaped, which is more or less how this whole mess started back in Episode 1. Geralt is injured in a fight against scavenger monsters, but a merchant saves his life. In bouts of delirium, he sees his mother Vicenna, who abandoned him as a child. Forced to become a witcher, Geralt's trouble with women began. Yet, when he awakens, he hears tell that Ciri is close, and the two of them finally meet. This is a pretty epic moment, but Ciri immediately asks,
Who is Yennefer?
Leading us to believe that our favorite morally complicated mage may yet live. Wait a second, so who won the war after the Battle of Sodden Hill? Did Yennefer survive? Is Geralt going to train Ciri? Chances are we're about to find out in Netflix's The Witcher Season 2. For more recaps like this, check out the Matrix saga leading up to Resurrections, and for literally everything else, be sure to subscribe to IGN wherever you like to watch.
Fear is an illness. It can consume you.
The Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf is torn between the franchise's future and its past. While it's filled with lore and character building that should please dedicated fans, the split focus keeps the animated film from feeling like a story that can really stand on its own.
But what is the worth of your word, Vesemir?
See, I'm a monster hunter. Every deal has a price.
Nightmare of the Wolf follows Geralt of Rivia's mentor and surrogate father, Vesemir. He's voiced by Divergent's Theo James, who feels like he's channeling Nathan Fillion's swaggering Hal Jordan as he exudes a carefree charm. Vesemir's path from a lowly servant to a professional monster slayer is told in flashbacks, and writer Beau DeMayo uses the same storytelling trick he helped employ as a writer on The Witcher Season 1, playing with expectations of how much time has passed between scenes based on how slowly Witchers age. The technique is used cleverly here, but DeMayo and director Kwang Il-han are a little too fond of misdirection in a story that tries to deliver plenty of twists, but winds up being pretty predictable. Like many prequels, Nightmare of the Wolf suffers from a feeling of inevitability. It also tries to stuff in too many nods to characters and conflicts that will be important later. Some plots, like a scathing indictment of the genocidal war against the elves and other elder races, still at least add to the narrative of this film. The name-dropping of major characters appearing in The Witcher Season 2, however, adds little beyond a shallow attempt at hype building. Where Nightmare of the Wolf does shine is the animation, which allows for storytelling that would be impractical even with the live-action show's impressive budget. There are some excellent fight sequences that really capture the sword and sorcery roots of the franchise. Some are riffs on things previously done in the series, like a dizzying fight with portals, but others feel like genuinely novel ways to mix spells, alchemy, and weapons that seem like they come from a deep place of affection for and knowledge of the source material. Still, the more is more approach to action doesn't always work, as the climax turns the affair into a chaotic spectacle that doesn't really fit within The Witcher's grittier tone. That doesn't mean it doesn't have an emotional impact. Kaer Morhen is gorgeous in its full glory, but it's also a place of nightmares. The sequence showing Vesemir and his fellow recruits undergoing the trial of the grasses, the alchemical process that gives the Witchers who survive their superhuman abilities, is the film's most visceral. That's saying something, since it also includes a spider-like monster crawling out of a woman and the gory dismemberment of multiple children. Nightmare of the Wolf provides new lore involving the fate of Kaer Morhen and the origins of monsters, which is sure to intrigue hardcore fans.
Might have slightly underestimated you. Slightly.
Oh.
DeMeo plays with the series' other dominant themes to varying effect. There's a surprisingly sweet romance that peeks out from all the bloodshed, and the concept of destiny is also played with, as various characters question how much agency they've had in their lives. There's even a funny jab at the concept of the law of surprise, a crucial key to the plot of The Witcher. But the jokes and charm are too often weighed down by the movie's attempts to hammer home core messages, with characters repeating lines like, "A Witcher never hesitates," scene after scene.
Friend of yours?
Friend of a friend.
The Witcher Nightmare of the Wolf isn't a bad film, but it fundamentally lacks an identity of its own. It's a fine way to spend 80 minutes if you want to pick up some fresh lore and get to meet a very different Vesemir than the one we're likely to see in Season 2, but it probably won't get anyone new to the franchise to stick around, or even convince anyone who was lukewarm on the live-action series to get more invested in the world. For more, check out our reviews of Free Guy and The Suicide Squad, and for everything else in the world of movies, stick with IGN.
True diabolical creatures fit only for killing. There is no place amidst honest men for them.
Something has changed, Geralt. The world's acting strange these days. The North and South at war. Monsters roaming when they should be hibernating. Maybe it's the end of days. Are you willing to sacrifice your right?
I've lived through 3 supposed end of days. It's all horseshit. This continent was meant for no one. None of us will have any peace until there are no monsters left in the world.
That's my home. My fight.
Your precious leader's after something. You're a pawn to get to it.
Rebuild our forces. Strengthen our numbers. We are an empire. The war's just begun.
Fear is an illness. It can consume you. Our best chance is to face it. Are you ready for this?
If what you say about that girl's power is true, you can't help her.
The man, the myth, the legend.
And we need your help.
Fine, but first, gentlemen, it's
been an honor. What? I made new friends. Get over it. Jealous?
Hey guys, I'm Josh Horowitz, and this man needs no introduction. Geralt of Rivia, aka Henry Cavill, is here with me. He's going to be answering my questions, and more importantly, your questions. Many of you have just seen the first episode of the new season of The Witcher. For the rest of you, if you're not, you are just days away. December 17th is the day. Thank you to all the fans tuning in all over the world. Trust me, this is going to be fun. We've got an exclusive clip coming up later on in the show, so make sure to stick around. But right now, the main event, Mr. Henry Cavill. It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you too. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Congratulations. Season 2 is upon us. We are hours away. Butterflies, excitement. The world is about to encounter what you've been laboring over for many, many months.
Yeah, always excitement. When it gets to this stage, it's all about, for me, just watching online and seeing what everyone has to say, going to all the places I usually go to, all the same Reddit forums, and just seeing what everyone says and soaking it up and seeing how I can improve.
You've been traveling the world a bit lately to help spread the good word of this. London, Madrid. What's it like to see the fans out there? I mean, we've talked about this. You've known fandoms. Fandoms know you in the past for Superman, but now they see you as this other iconic character. Is it a different kind of an experience given this fandom versus others you've experienced?
I wouldn't say it's a different experience necessarily. Obviously, being on this tour was a different experience, with it being post-COVID and the COVID rules still in place. Not being able to interact with everyone was a real shame, because I do love going to these countries and seeing everyone and being able to say thank you in my own way by spending the time with them. But as far as fan groups are concerned, no, it's the same. It's that same passion, right, that same protectiveness over the thing that they love. And I love that because I'm one of them. I'm the same.
Have you started to see the depictions of yourself in the fan art and the tattoos, etc.? You must have, encountered fans with Geralt as you on their bodies, and that must be so surreal.
I haven't been able to be out that much, and so I haven't seen much in the way of tattoos yet. We'll see how season 2 does. I mean, a tattoo after one season is that's quite the commitment.
On my back at the end of this, I'm going to show it to you, and you be honest. Tell me what you think.
What I said, I didn't mean. Yeah, it's a great choice.
So a lot of fans out there have just seen the first episode. They got a sneak peek at it.
Yep.
How does this episode set the stage for what we're going to see in season 2? We get to meet some new people. Christopher Hifju is now part of it, although a little unrecognizable, perhaps.
Absolutely. Christopher is absolutely brilliant, as everyone has, well, at least a lot of you have seen, and I loved working with him. As I've said before, he's recognizable from his incredible bombastic performances in Game of Thrones, and this is also very bombastic, but there's such a beautiful performance he does right at the end, which is really deep and soulful and Shakespearean in its nature. And it touched me. And obviously I get to speak to Christopher on set, and so we were sitting there chatting about other projects and things that we'd love to do and work with each other on, and just to see this performance come out of him, you just think, okay, it's one thing having conversations, but then when you see a performance like that live in front of you and repeated, you realize that's someone you really want to work with.
Talk to me about what it's like for you as a star, as a fan. After season 1, you start to see the scripts for season 2. What struck you about what the writers, what the showrunners had in store for you for season 2 when they started?
Well, for me, it was. I wanted to make sure that Geralt from the books was represented properly, and so seeing these scripts, I thought, right, okay, cool. I see what their plan is, and what I'd like to do is start to impress a more intellectual, a wiser Geralt. I mean, he has been around for 70 plus years. Right. The chances are he's not going to be a dolt. And especially if he's survived this long, he's got to have some wiliness at least, if not wisdom. Yeah. And so I started to impress this and say, right, look, this is important to me because I love the source material, I love the books, and there's so much in the way of beautiful storytelling attached to that. And if that's stripped away for the sake of a comedy character, then it drops some things out. And so I've sent lots of emails and had lots of discussions, and that was ultimately my plan to try and bring more of that forward, because of what I was saying earlier. After season 1, I spent all my time on the forums, reading what everyone had to say, reading what the critics had to say, and trying to work out the best way to represent the thing that I loved so much in the show. And also people who had watched the show and gone, oh, this is pretty cool. Almost swore there. Sorry, everyone. Pretty cool. Then they went and read the books. Right. The books had a massive uptick in sales, and so people were well versed with the characters they found in there, and I wanted to give them that.
It's so funny. It's like, because everything you say flies in the face of like most actors that are like never read the comments, never engage, right. And you just like go all the way to the other extreme because I guess you're a fan first, and you.
That's the thing. Yeah. It's I can completely respect and understand actors and producers and directors who don't want to do that. Yeah. But I'm one of those people who would not necessarily be commenting on forums, but if I see something, I'm like, huh, okay, well, maybe that's not how I saw it, or I'd like to see it this way, or that's exactly how I saw it. And if I saw, I don't know, Raymond E. Feist's books adapted, I would be really, really interested to watch it and see what everyone has to say. And so the same thing with Sapkowski's. Yep. And it does matter to me because I got to know what everyone thinks, and everyone's going to have a different opinion across the board, and it's about selecting those opinions which are narrative driven, and you're like, okay, it's a little destructive in that opinion and consistently destructive, and I think I see what you're doing, like
cutting away the noise and seeing the heart of it.
Even the overwhelmingly positive ones, you're like, okay, there's also a narrative there, and so you pluck those out, and then you have everything else, and then you can just look at them across the board and think, right, how can I improve for everyone without losing what my own personal vision of when I read the books was like. And so, yeah, it's that fine balance.
Let's talk about some of the relationships that we're going to explore more in this season. Obviously, the relationship between Geralt and Siri, very key in season 1, still very key in season 2. How are we seeing this relationship develop in new and interesting ways? How do you see it?
With Geralt and Siri? With Geralt and Siri, well, we obviously spent a very brief amount of time together in season 1, and so season 2, it was quite modernized initially at first, and then I started to layer in this sort of this more intellectual, wiser Geralt, and I wanted him to recognize her trauma. Because it's very easy to forget when you see a character like Siri and you think she's been through trauma and it's really terrible, but we also forget that Geralt's been through trauma. He was younger than her and being filled with magical and chemicals and herbs and screaming until he almost died, and kids are dying around him. And then the people who did this to him are like, we're your friends. And
the therapy bills are off the charts.
And then they were like, and by the way, you survived, but you survived surprisingly well, so we're going to do more to you.
Right.
And then he went out into the world, and the world hated him. And so he's also experienced trauma, and from someone who's gone through that, he's going to have that sense of patience with her and that sense of waiting. And plus, you know, she's been through a lot. She's going to lash out from time to time. And instead of him lashing out in return, he's going to try and sit back and try and understand. Two aspects, his wisdom and also recognize trauma. And so those were things which I really wanted to layer into the character. And Freya was brilliant. She was really brilliant at walking that line between someone who's gone through that and doesn't want to share, someone who's harboring a secret as well, and at the same time someone who feels deep down that there's something about this rather strange character, this inhuman character that she can start to trust. And then there's also these other inhuman characters that she can start to trust. And she did such a wonderful job. It was a real pleasure working with her, and the depths that she goes to in performance it's brilliant.
The world of The Witcher includes some places we've heard of but haven't seen yet. This season we get to see Kaer Morhen. Talk to me about why that was exciting, what was intriguing about finally getting to see that important aspect of the Witcher universe.
Kaer Morhen, for me, I obviously discovered first in the Witcher games, and Witcher 3 specifically is where that's the one I really played, and it was such an extraordinary place, that vista, the scenery, and you immediately have that connection to this world because CD Projekt Red did such a good job in creating it in the game medium. But then when I read the books, obviously the short stories are fantastic in books 1 and 2, but I wanted to know more about Geralt. I wanted to know his background, and I digress here, but being a Warhammer fan,
it always goes back to Warhammer.
Yeah, always goes back to Warhammer. I read all of these codices and back in the day, the army's books, and they're all background, and it's all endless amounts of lore, and you get to know sort of the deeper and deeper nature of all of these characters, whether it's the Primarchs in the Black Library series or not. But it becomes this thing where you're going, but why, but what, and where does he come from, and who is he? And so Blood of Elves showed me that. It took me to this place, and it showed me these other witches and the way that they stand, and they all stand in the same way because they've been trained in a certain way. And it just such wonderful world building and character building in such a massive way, but amongst such a finite group. And that's why Kaer Morhen was so important to me. I wanted to have that same feeling from reading the books, and Andrew Laws did such an amazing job designing those sets, and it was a stunning place.
I mean, talking about fleshing out the character and the backstory, etc., you must have been very much looking forward to seeing Vesemir enter the story this season. What can you say about the relationship that we're going to get to see finally?
Well, again, this is something which I to impress the idea of three-dimensional male characters onto what was there, and I wanted to make sure that these characters were rich and complex. And it's quite easy to fall into they're grumpy, roughy-tufty guys who fight all the time, and they're very antagonistic, and I didn't want that to happen. I wanted to show the soulfulness of these characters, and I'm very, very lucky to know a number of people actually who have done some extraordinary things in the armed forces and been in very select groups. And those people are the most soulful I know. They're the most emotionally connected to one another, and also have the capacity to be emotionally connected to other people. I'm sure there's a very long psychological road to go down as to work out the why of that. Sure. But that's what I really wanted represented with this group, and especially amongst Vesemir and Geralt, who have a particularly close connection. Yes. And so, again, another thing I campaigned for was to make sure that it was a soulful relationship and a genuinely open, sensitive, meaningful one.
deep psychological relationships and great settings. Let's talk monsters. Let's talk. I mean, come on, you can't do it without the monsters.
Yeah, but the cool stuff.
The cool stuff. That's the 12-year-old in me comes out. Episode 1 in season 2, we see the Bruxa. What can we expect from the monsters we're going to see in this season? Was there it's hard to keep raising the bar, but you have to.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of monsters, and they're all very exciting. And there's a new origin story based around them, and I don't want to say too much actually, because there's a lot for everyone to discover still. But the VFX team have done an absolutely brilliant job. They really, really have. And Andrew Laws helped design all the monsters as well. And they all look brilliant. And it's very, very exciting stuff, and lots of peril and danger.
Does it ever get easier? I mean, you've done so much work opposite things that aren't necessarily right in front of you. Does that always feel a little silly on set, or like have you accrued so much experience now where if there's a guy that's going to be able to do this, I'm your guy, because I have the PhD in this by now.
I mean, I definitely have experience in it, for sure. I remember laughing at myself fighting Doomsday, and laughing at the guy who was playing Doomsday because he was playing something really big, but the way the outfit he was dressed in and everything and the actions he was doing made him look like he was really angry and small. and it was just this wonderful comedic moment, but you get so used to that kind of stuff, and it's become an art form now, and everyone's a lot more comfortable with it, so there's less embarrassment amongst the performers doing it, and they do it so well that even if it's a performer there in a suit, or if it's just no one there, it's something that you get used to, and it's now part of the craft, and it's something that actors are required to be able to do. The big thing is trust. It's trust in the people who are going to make the cuts, the people who are going to put the VFX together, to make sure that they make you look your best. And that's a big thing.
Yeah, you can't have a doubt in your mind. You have to commit 150%, or else it's not going to show up.
You do, yeah. And just hope for the best.
The physical transformation for you is always important to this character, obviously. Talk to me about when you get in the makeup chair and you go through that process, and when you go back into season 2, that must give you so much just as you start to transform. Does it change your mindset as you sit in that chair?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
You're like, no, I just want to get out of that. Shorten it.
Yeah, no. Jackie Ratour and Avril Lamas are my hair and makeup, respectively, and they are extraordinary at what they do. And so the amount of work that goes into that and the transformation process becomes such a thing that once it's finished and done, and you do look like the character, you don't feel like you are wearing a funny wig and you've got white makeup on. It becomes something else, and you start to move differently, and you start to become. I mean, I always think of Geralt as the way he moves is predatory, and because he is this finely honed and trained hunter.
Yeah,
and so them doing that thing just makes that easier to start moving that way. And then you get into costume, and then the contacts go in, and then it's all there. And it's something which I've tried to do for my co-stars, is wear the contacts if I'm off camera, because it does make a difference. That look does make a difference. And I hope it helps rather than hinders, because I mean, you can sometimes lose a bit of the emotionality with contact lenses in. But it is a certain look, and you can see people reacting differently. You know how the energy feels different around you, and it is enormously helpful.
It must be such a boost to also know season 3 has already been announced, has been greenlit. That's amazing.
Indeed.
So is your head already in the future? Have you talked to everybody about sort of what the plans are? Are scripts starting to come in, or is it early days yet of what season 3 is going to look like?
It's early days-ish, yes. There's always work to do at this stage. There's always work to make sure that, I mean, for me personally, it's always focusing on Geralt and making sure he's represented. And so that'll be the body of my work. I can't change storylines. I can't change the plot. But what I can do is campaign to make sure that Geralt's represented in the best way that those storylines and the vision will allow.
So, as promised, we do have an exclusive clip coming up at the end, but right now I want to give the fans out there, and there's so many watching this right now, a chance to ask some questions. I've got some fan questions I'm going to ask on their behalf. We'll run through a bunch. Let's start with, this is from Vanessa in Peru, who wants to know, what is the biggest challenge to playing a character and something that you're a fan of?
Oh, good question. Should I answer to you or to the cameras?
To me.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe I'm just selfish. To
me.
Yeah,
me. These are my questions.
I'm Vanessa now.
Yeah. So there is a challenge in that, and it is treading the line between a dogged faith to the source material and the showrunner's vision, and what she has planned for everything and for the characters. And so it's treading that fine line and just making sure that no matter what, when I leave the thing, I felt like I've done everything I possibly and humanly can to represent the character in the way that I feel it should be represented.
Mm-hmm. Christopher R. here in the United States wants to know, is there a particular ritual to get into character before going in front of the camera? We talked about being in the makeup chair, but is there anything that you go over in your head, a mantra or anything that just gets you into the right frame of mind?
There were some days when the going got tough, and it was just about trying to put myself in the right headspace rather than the wrong headspace. Practice some stoicism, which is always a good one, and actually listen to some of the Witcher 3 soundtrack.
Amazing.
Because obviously my first introduction really at length, and that's a great soundtrack. And so it just kind of gets into you like, right, okay, cool, this is the stuff I loved, and this is when I was imagining making a movie or a TV show about it. And so you just start to get into that frame of mind, and that becomes the focus rather than anything else.
Just you want to imagine like going back to your like childhood bedroom and you're like watching TV or something, and your parents are like, shut it off, and you're like, no, this is research.
Yeah, I'm researching.
Trust me.
Believe me.
Trust me.
In 20 years' time, you'll regret saying that.
Exactly. This is Maria S. in the Dominican Republic, wants to know, how does Geralt and Yennefer's relationship evolve in season 2?
That is a difficult one to answer without spoilers, but there is plenty of original story, so lots of surprises for even the people who are well versed in the books. So yes, you'll have to wait and see for that one, I'm afraid.
Debbie T. in Canada wants to know, how does Geralt compare with other roles you've played? Is there any commonality? Does this feel like you can relate it to any other roles, or does Geralt stand apart?
I think Geralt stands apart. He's a particular character, and that's what's so wonderful about him. He is obviously a hero character and a representation of good.
Sure.
But he also does certain things which your average hero wouldn't do, and is fine with it.
Right.
Like the idea of killing all of the guys in Blaviken, he was only really bummed out by killing Renfrey because it was just such a misunderstanding there, and the show definitely represented it as a love thing, but it was just more of a, this didn't have to happen, and he gave us so much of a chance, as far as how I felt, and I just wanted to make it that was sad, but Geralt was fine with murdering everyone else, and that is a really interesting hero character because it subverts everything.
Yep.
And it makes you question his actions, and he also questions his own actions, and it becomes an interesting philosophical line which is constantly darting and weaving all over the place.
Definitely. This is from Luisa F. in Mexico. We know that actors put at least a bit of themselves into their characters. How much of you can you see in Geralt?
It's really tough to separate what is me and what is not, because when you play it so often and so much, when you're talking about 6-7 months doing a thing, and long days, 6 days a week, and I think it all kind of blends into one ultimately. I can definitely draw some similarities between myself and Geralt in the fact that we're both kind of nomads, both live on the outskirts of society in a way, and both have pools of friends around the place, but a select core group. And that definitely introduces or encourages certain character traits in one. And I would say those are some similarities, but it's difficult to to really separate the two a lot of the time.
Yeah, people forget. I mean, just like living and breathing in those shoes for that much period of time, it's just, you can't help.
Especially when you're thinking about it all the time. It's just not like I stop thinking about it when I finish work and go home. It's a constant thing. I'm thinking about how can I improve, how can I protect, how can I make sure that this character comes across in the best way possible. It's going to do justice to the love that the fans have for this character.
Let's see. Marcello B. from Brazil wants to know, barring Geralt, which character is your favorite from season 2?
Barring Geralt?
Yes.
Which character? That's a really good question.
Hard to pick favorites, but is there a new character, or is there?
It's hard to. I mean, I want to be careful about dropping any new characters, just in case. Out of the slew that have been mentioned already, I don't want to be like, oh, sorry, Netflix, ruined that one. I think because of what you guys have seen, at least some of you have seen, I would say Nivellen was pretty extraordinary just because of Christopher's performance and the amount of hard work that went in with the prosthetics team and the VFX for that. It was really, really well done. And Christopher especially, he's a truly magical human being.
Yeah, a lot of life force in that guy, definitely. This is from, forgive the pronunciation, I'll probably butcher it. It's either Kai or Key W from the United States. What is one moment while shooting The Witcher that made you learn something new about yourself personally or as an actor?
There were lots of moments. Went through a lot of growth that last season, but I would say probably tearing my hamstring was a pretty big one. That because it led to a whole bunch of other things as well, and that was a big one. Yeah, that when you think, okay, that was an injury, which it was a shame that it happened, and it could be the injury which changes the trajectory of my career from here, just as things were really hitting a good stride, which is a ironic thing to say considering it was a hamstring tear. But yeah, probably that taught me an awful lot, and as I wouldn't necessarily say as an actor, but definitely as a person. But there was a lot to have been learned. Yeah.
Is there change in, I mean, obviously the physical commitment, and you are as dedicated as they come. Like, how do you adjust after that? I mean, when like part of your livelihood is your body and using your body, and that must just be psychologically just a really.
It's like, yes, yeah, it was a challenge, and the biggest thing was that balance between wanting to protect myself and my career, and also trying to help production and respond to the demands that they had for the hours needed to be worked. And sort of it's 5.5 hours 5 hours was the max I was supposed to be allowed on my feet a day, and you push beyond that. And when someone says, hey, can you do 6 days? Can you do 7? Like, is it right if we just do a little bit more? And then it's that point where you go, I really want to help. It hurts, but it doesn't hurt that much. Can I go any further? And it took a couple of times of me just taking a moment and saying, look, don't be a fool.
Right.
All it takes is one slip, and that thing re-tears, and then you're in real trouble.
Right.
And right now you're in trouble, but then you'd be in genuine trouble, which could... That's your fault, that stage, because it's your job to say no. And thankfully I had an amazing physiotherapist with Freddie Murray.
Yeah.
And he looked after me, and he set the rules, but he also said, look, what you need to do is what you need to do, and understand that. I will pull the plug if I think you're being insane. Right. But otherwise, it's your body, and I can't tell you how you're feeling.
This is from Ina J in the Philippines. Do you have any favorites in the Witcher short stories by Sapkowski? We know you do.
Yeah.
Many. 10 minutes later.
Yeah. And then Josh realized he had made a mistake.
I'm just going to sneak off now.
Yeah. I would say easy answer to that is Sword of Destiny. When Geralt and Cirilla first meet, and they're in Brocklin Forest, just the nature of the character relationship and development there, and you also see this incredibly caretaker-like side of Geralt in Blood of Elves, but you see it there with the way he talks to Ciri and the way he treats Ciri, and then you see how he is at the end, which can come across as harsh, because he's walking away from this little girl crying who's saying, "You're my destiny, please come back, and he's looking like he's rejecting her, but he's still protecting her.
Yep.
He's walking away from this child who he says, you're gonna have no business living with a Witcher. Like, he thinks he's doing her a favor, and I just thought that whole story was so beautifully done, and it was so wonderfully connected, and it showed the mystical side of Geralt and what the Dryad connection, what they thought of him, and the Waters of Broccolon, and then just lovely storytelling moments like him telling the story about the cat and the fox, and then when he tells her to run, she runs up a tree because of the story he told her, and it was just absolutely stunning. And you also see little bits of Geralt with the pupil contraction into a cat's eye with the sun, and I thought that was really cool. Just little bits of detail like that, and you also realise he's not unbeatable because he's about to get his ass kicked, and then Moustack turns up, and I can say that, can I? The A word? Yeah, just like, sorry.
The Witcher, you can say what you like.
Get about his butt kicked. And then Moustack turns up with a whole bunch of Central Knights and saves him. And so it's not this superhuman superhero character, and he's fallible, and yet he's also wonderful at the same time. And that story just held so much as far as character relations. I remember seeing this lovely piece of artwork of him lying down with the Dryad and Ciri, and one on either side, and it just looked so beautiful for this sort of gruff, rather stern, cold but philosophical and intelligent man being so caring, and it was a lovely little piece of art. I don't think it was official. It was probably fan art.
Well, let's end with this. You've been very complimentary with your cast, but it is an amazing company of actors in this. Kevin wants to know simply, what's it like to work with such an amazing cast? I mean, you guys have to be, as we said before, be all fully committed to the fantasy world that is created here. What's it been like to share the stage with these folks?
It's been amazing. They are extraordinary performers. Freya, Anya, and you know what? I'm not going to go naming everyone because it just ends up me naming everyone. Right. But they really are. It takes so much hard work to do this, and there's some tricky material to work with, and they have just poured life and magic into it, and it's extraordinary to see. And I don't know if it's my place to say that I'm proud of them, but I'm proud to have worked with them.
Yeah.
And I think everyone's going to be really, really happy with the performances when they watch the rest of the season.
Congratulations on the new season, my friend. Your passion and excitement for this material is always contagious. I know everyone around the world watching this is very excited for the season. My thanks once more to Mr. Henry Cavill, and thanks, of course, to the fans out there that are watching. Remember, Season 2 on Netflix, it's just days away, December 17th, and we do have one more treat for the fans out there. Here is a never-before-seen clip from Season 2 of The Witcher.
This is your home. How many did you say there were?
I didn't. Last I checked, we were 20. Now, maybe less.
You're sure we're safe here?
Keep up.
Lamb chop.